There are places where every breath feels like a negotiation with nature. Where cold, altitude, and the harshness of the land quietly test the limits of survival. In some places, breath disappears into the freezing air. In others, the ground burns as if it has never truly cooled. But what makes people still choose to remain in places that seem as though they were never meant for them? Hidden deep within Siberia, Oymyakon lies in one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. Winter temperatures fall to nearly -90 degrees Fahrenheit. Frost hangs in the air before dawn, while silence blankets the entire valley. Winter here does not merely feel like a season of the year. It operates like a force. The cold air cuts through every breath. Moisture freezes on hair and eyelashes within moments, leaving a thin layer of crystals on exposed skin. Morning arrives slowly through thick frost and faint light. The sun appears only briefly during winter before quickly disappearing behind the pale horizon. The streets remain almost motionless. The sound of engines echoes clearly from afar through the stillness. At such extreme temperatures, cars are often left running throughout the night to prevent their engines from freezing. Yet life continues. Children still go to school. Thin smoke rises from wooden houses across a land that seems to resist human existence. The deepest cold rarely brings the village to a stop. Even as temperatures approach -94 degrees Fahrenheit, people continue their daily lives in a place where survival demands constant effort. In Oymyakon, endurance shapes everyday life, and winter reveals how far humans can adapt at the edge of habitability. Amid the arid Afar desert of Ethiopia, there exists a place where the ground seems to have never truly cooled since the earliest days of this ancient world. The Danakil Depression opens like a gigantic crack across the earth, a place where heat, toxic gases, and vividly colored acid pools turn the entire landscape into something that feels more like an alien world than a place meant for humanity. No trees, only fractured ground and the feeling that whatever lies beneath your feet has never stopped moving. At Dallo, sulfur and salt crystallize into strange formations that seem almost unreal. Hot steam continuously rises from fissures, making every breath feel heavy, as though inhaling heat from the Earth's very core. But Danakil is not terrifying only because of its heat or toxic gases. This place feels primitive, unfinished. As if nature were still in the middle of writing this planet. When night falls, Berta Ale volcano begins to glow. One of the few continuously active lava lakes in the world moves silently through the darkness, burning red like the exposed heartbeat of the earth. And amid a place that seems to resist nearly every condition for life, the Afar people still endure, crossing harsh salt fields as if humanity had long ago learned to live beside the planet's most unforgiving side. Backed by the ancient glaciers of the Andes, La Rinconada sits at an altitude of more than 5,000 meters above sea level, one of the highest permanent settlements on the planet. At this elevation, oxygen levels drop significantly, making even the simplest activities a challenge for the human body. From a distance, the town appears like a cluster of small houses trapped among rock, ice, snow, and cold clouds. Rooftops crowd along dark mountain slopes, while above them, enormous glaciers dominate the Andes landscape, a reminder that nature always holds the upper hand here. Life in La Rinconada revolves around gold. Each day, thousands of workers enter dark, cold, oxygen-poor tunnels deep inside the mountain in search of ore. At this extreme altitude, even a few quick steps are enough to make breathing feel heavy. The risks of exhaustion, tunnel collapses, and severe weather are ever present. At night, temperatures fall sharply as cold winds sweep through roads covered in mud, rock, and melting snow flowing down from mining areas above the town. In a place where trees have almost disappeared and living conditions become fragile, La Rinconada continues to exist as a city where people keep trading health and safety in pursuit of gold beneath the cold skies of the Andes. Hidden deep within the arid interior of South Australia, stretching across a desolate land larger than many European capitals, scorching sunlight sweeps across pale rock and endless red dust. Standing here feels as though humans are merely temporary visitors in a place never meant for them. At first glance, Coober Pedy looks like a forgotten town stranded in the desert. But most of its residents live underground, in dugouts carved deep into rock to escape summer heat that often rises above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. In this place, survival begins by going beneath the surface. It is the underground that shaped the destiny of this town. Coober Pedy sits atop one of the world's largest opal fields, where for more than a century people have dug through extreme conditions in search of shimmering flashes of color hidden inside stone. Every strike of the pickaxe feels like a gamble against time and endurance. Even daily life bends to nature. Homes, hotels, bars, and even churches lie underground, while the barren surface above is often used as a backdrop for science fiction films. Everything about this place feels more like adaptation than conquest. Then the greatest truth quietly reveals itself. In one of Australia's harshest desert regions, an entire community survives by living underground to escape a climate that is nearly unbearable. Cobra PD is a reminder that sometimes survival is not about conquering nature, but quietly making room for it. Amid the vast South Atlantic, Tristan da Cunha appears like a solitary patch of land in the cold open sea, where white waves continuously crash against dark cliffs beneath gray skies. Standing here feels like standing at the very edge of the world. From above, the tiny island seems swallowed by the endless emptiness of the ocean. Just behind its only settlement, the volcanic peak of Queen Mary's Peak rises more than 6,700 feet, casting its shadow across the entire isolated land, as if reminding people that they are only borrowing space from nature in order to survive. The strangest thing here is not only the remoteness, but the way life functions. No airport, no direct connection to the mainland. To reach the island, people must spend nearly a week crossing the sea. And once the last ship departs, Tristan da Cunha almost completely disappears from the rest of humanity. Yet despite that isolation, life continues with quiet endurance. Amid howling winds and cold seas, a small community still fishes, farms, and lives side by side each day. They pass through the years in calm persistence, as though time here moves to a rhythm entirely detached from the restless world beyond. Off the coast of Brazil, an isolated island rests silently in the Atlantic Ocean, where dense forests conceal thousands of venomous snakes quietly coiled around rocks and tree branches. From above, Snake Island appears peaceful, like any tropical island, but that calm is only an illusion. This is the near-exclusive home of the golden lancehead, one of the most venomous snakes on the planet. Thousands of years ago, when rising seas separated the island from mainland Brazil, the remaining creatures were forced to evolve in order to survive. With no large animals left to hunt, migratory birds became the primary food source, causing the snake's venom to become faster and more potent so prey would have no chance to escape. The most frightening thing lies not only in the number of snakes, but in the feeling that the entire island is watching in silence. Across an area of less than half a square mile, snake density was once estimated to be so high that even a few steps could become a gamble with death. Because of the danger, the island is almost entirely off-limits to visitors. Amid the forest, an old lighthouse faces the ocean like the final trace of humanity in a place where even the smallest mistake can come at a deadly cost. At the southern edge of the Earth, amid endless stretches of ice and snow that seem to have no end, McMurdo Station appears like a small cluster of lights resisting the silence of Antarctica. Here, human life exists at the outermost edge of where survival is possible. From above, McMurdo looks like a few fragile metal structures trapped within an endless white expanse. No trees, no cities, only ice, dark mountain rock frozen for millions of years, and winds cold enough to quickly numb the human body. During many months of winter, the sun disappears completely. Darkness blankets the continent, while snowstorms can erase human traces within minutes. When the weather turns harsh, the outside world nearly vanishes behind walls of white wind. Nature here is neither angry nor forgiving. It simply follows its own rules, completely indifferent to the existence of anyone. All fuel, food, equipment, and medicine must travel thousands of frozen miles to reach this place, making each day of survival feel fragile, as though living at an outpost on another planet. The wind continues to move around the cold steel walls, while the silence of Antarctica quietly waits for someone to stop and listen. More than 2,500 miles off the west coast of the United States, Kilauea stretches across Hawaii like an open wound on the skin of the Earth. Black volcanic rock meets the Pacific Ocean. Steam quietly rises. The ground waits, uneasy beneath the tropical stillness. By day, Kilauea feels like a world left unfinished. Cold lava stretches for miles like a planet still in the process of forming. Fissures cut across the darkened ground. Heat quietly rises. The air shimmers above rock, still carrying the memory of fire. White smoke escapes from cracks deep below. The heavy scent of sulfur fills the air. Every step becomes cautious. You begin to lose trust in the ground beneath your feet. In this place, stability feels like something only temporarily borrowed. Then night arrives. Red lava glows in the darkness like hot veins beneath the skin of the planet. Orange light spreads across the sky in smoke. In some places, lava plunges into the cold sea. Steam erupts violently. Fire meets the ocean as the earth quietly redraws itself. The ground trembles before the mind can fully accept it. Kilauea is not simply a volcano. It feels like a reminder that deep beneath this seemingly quiet crust, the earth has never truly stopped living. Off the coast of Yemen, amid the vast Arabian Sea, Socotra lies isolated like a world of its own, existing beyond the rhythm of modern life. Stretching roughly 50 miles in length, the island appears with arid mountain ranges, white cliffs, and pale beaches surrounding forests of unusual shapes. From the very first glance, Socotra feels like a place where time moves more slowly. Millions of years of isolation allowed the ecosystem here to evolve along a separate path. Nearly 1/3 of the island's plant species exist nowhere else on Earth. They have adapted to heat, sea salt, and long dry seasons among harsh mountains, valleys, and plateaus. Most striking is the dragon blood tree, a species with a broad canopy shaped like a giant umbrella standing across the barren landscape. Its red resin once traveled through ancient trade routes. As sunset spreads across the island, these strange forests create a scene that feels both silent and unfamiliar. Deeper inland, bottle trees store water within their swollen trunks to survive drought. Limestone caves, narrow valleys, and barren plateaus make every journey feel slower, as though stepping into a place forgotten by the world. Socotra reminds people that rare places still exist on Earth, where nature continues to evolve according to its own rules. Amid the frozen wilderness of Siberia and Russia, where winter stretches on as if time itself were trapped in ice, there exists a lake whose first impression is not awe, but disbelief. Its surface extends so far that the horizon nearly disappears, covering the world in a cold blue-white emptiness where frozen cracks stretch across the ice like markings from another planet. In winter, Lake Baikal transforms into a gigantic mass of crystal-clear ice, so transparent in some places that people can see through to the dark waters below. Methane bubbles trapped within the ice form stacked circular layers, as if time had suddenly stopped moving. In some areas, the frozen surface releases deep, resonant sounds, long, low rumbles, as though the enormous lake were quietly shifting beneath the feet of those standing above it. What makes Baikal extraordinary lies not only in its almost unreal appearance. It is the deepest freshwater lake on the planet, holding around 1/5 of the world's unfrozen freshwater and existing for more than 25 million years older than most lakes on Earth. Amid the silence covered in ice, the clearest feeling is not the cold, but the realization that nature sometimes creates places that make humans feel impossibly small. The Atacama stretches more than 600 miles across northern Chile, nearly the size of California. White salt-cracked ground spreads beneath your feet, while dry winds move through thin, almost scentless air. The first thing you feel is a dry throat before the loneliness even arrives. The human body comes here expecting survival to feel familiar, but it does not. Humidity nearly disappears. Lips crack quickly, skin tightens and burns. Even breathing begins to feel sharp, as though the air itself were quietly drawing moisture from the body. Some places in the Atacama go years without recorded rainfall. NASA studies this land because it resembles parts of Mars. The ground appears lifeless, yet microorganisms still endure beneath layers of salt and stone. The air turns deeply cold. The sky expands until it makes you feel smaller. Thousands of stars emerge, so vivid that silence itself begins to feel heavy. This place does not need to threaten you with anything. It simply makes you realize that the human body is more fragile than the sense of safety once promised. Amid the stillness of the Atacama, you begin to wonder how much you truly need to survive. In the Russian Far East, where the volcanic ranges of Kamchatka stretch across cold mist and landscapes barely touched by human presence, there exists a valley with a name that makes many people pause: Valley of Death. From a distance, this place appears wild and almost peaceful, with thin mist quietly drifting over volcanic ground while steam rises silently through the stillness. But beneath that calm lies something deeply unusual. Unlike many dangerous places on Earth, the threat here is almost invisible. Researchers discovered that volcanic gases such as carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide accumulate close to the ground, especially in low-lying areas. Being heavier than air, they silently blanket the valley, creating an environment where many living creatures cannot survive long enough to recognize the danger. For years, people have found the bodies of birds, foxes, and other animals scattered across this region. Some were drawn in by earlier carcasses, only to become trapped in the same deadly cycle created by nature itself. No blizzards, no predators. Sometimes, the atmosphere alone is enough to become the boundary between life and death. Perhaps the most unsettling thing about Valley of Death is that the greatest danger here is something humans rarely pay attention to: the air around them. A reminder that nature does not need to be violent to become terrifying. Perhaps the most astonishing thing lies not in the harshness of nature, but in the fact that Earth remains far stranger than we imagine. And ahead of us, that journey of discovery has not truly come to an end.